When the weather turns bad, turn to us. Bismarck Mandan's Emergency Weather Information Station, Super Talk 1270.
Welcome to Mortgage Talk 101 here on Super Talk 1270. Time to look behind the numbers. Buying, selling, refinancing. Mortgage Talk 101 addresses real issues in real estate. Now, live from the Super Talk 1270 studios, here's Mortgage Talk 101 host, Joe Sheehan.
Your body built for radio, saddling up the stainless steel microphone of the Mortgage Network, absent my co-host, Dave Floor, but my producer, Jim Walsh. How you doing this morning?
Hello there.
So what we got on tap today, of course, interest rates, as we always do. We got a little bit of GDP news from Elliot Eisenberg. We've got a couple questions that are answered by some of the daily news. Who's doing the best job on paying their mortgages out there? Would you like your in-laws to live with you? And what's happening to the size of homes as time has gone on here with what
bigger, smaller, whatever.
Yeah. So if you have questions or you want to chime in or have an opinion, 663-1270. As always, you can call into the show at 663-1270, voice your opinion or give us a question. And we also have some news on North Dakota housing finance changes and a question that came in off the air regarding how old is too old to buy a home? So as we get started, well, what's going on with mortgage interest rates today? Well, let's go to the Freddie Mac primary mortgage market survey. And according to that, interest rates down. The 30-year fixed rate mortgage, 4.1% with a half-point discount cost to get that rate. And the 15-year fixed rate mortgage, 3.23 at 0.6. Now, what was it last week? 4.12 with a 0.6 fee, and the 15-year was 3.24 with 0.6. Now, last few days, remember these averages are based on a week of data coming into Freddie Mac reported by certain investors, but over the last few days here, mortgage rates facing some headwinds, not doing as well. So the rate you call in and get from your lender today could be worse as we're reporting an average because rates have gotten slightly worse over the last few days. And what's going on? Well, it's been a rough few days for mortgage bonds, but prices appear to have stabilized a bit heading into tomorrow's highly anticipated speech by Fed Chair Janet Yellen. The Labor Department reported that weekly initial jobless claims fell by 14,000 in the latest week to 298 versus the 308 expected. The claims continue to hover near the 300,000 level, and we don't expect to see much further decline in these weekly numbers as they hovered near the 300,000 level back when the unemployment rate was 5%. So basically, remember, good news means bad news for mortgage interest rates. And so as long as there's good news out there. But there is some, Elliot Eisenberg reported earlier in the week that the belief is that the Fed chair is going to sit tight on the Fed short-term interest rates until April of 2015, which doesn't affect mortgage rates today, but it certainly does impact the stability of the rate environment and helps people kind of plan out what they think is going to happen in the market. It also indicates that the Fed doesn't see inflation as a big problem in the near future. And remember, the other enemy to mortgage interest rates is inflation. And if the Fed feels comfortable leaving the interest rate alone, then there's probably not a tremendous fear of inflation being indicated by the Fed, which is good for mortgage interest rates long term into the next year. So that's kind of what's going on with the short and long of where traders are trading mortgage bonds and what they're expecting from mortgage interest rates. And but the closely watched S&P 500 is back testing all-time record highs ahead of Miss Yellen's speech. Stocks have performed very well after the last 6 Jackson Hole speeches. But that was when the Fed was talking about easing monetary conditions and starting QE programs. This time around, it's clear that QE is approaching its end, and stocks did not do well when both QE and QE2 ended. So tomorrow is going to be interesting. Right now, Mortgage Market Guide Bill Bodner is saying rates could get better. So hold on. If you have a long-term situation where you don't need an interest rate today, hey, there's no reason to panic yet. But if you like the rate you got, if you like the payment you've got, there's no reason to not lock today either. But you won't lose anything, hopefully, if you wait it out there expecting they could potentially get better. But always, as always, do what's best for you. Check with your loan officer. Get the advice of a loan officer who knows your situation, and check it out there. Again, 663-1270 if you've got questions. We move into Elliot Eisenberg's report on GDP. Since 1947, real GDP growth has averaged 3.26% a year. That's the average since 1947. Since January 1st of 2010, it's averaged 2.3%. And economists think that the decline will persist for a while because of both slower productivity gains and population growth.
It's not declining so much as the increase is slowing down, right?
Well,
am I getting that right?
No, because it's saying the average is so the average has been 3.26% a year,
but it's still growing, right?
Right,
yeah,
right.
Okay,
but the average growth since January of 2010 has only been 2.3%. So the average is lowering.
Yeah, but it's still growing. I mean, we're
the
still
economy
in the
is
black
still growing.
Yeah,
right. Therefore, the neutral fund. So anyway,
I'm sorry.
So basically, basically, what Elliot's saying is that this is the reason why the Fed's not afraid of inflation.
Yeah,
static and lowering growth has kept the federal funds rate in neither a mood of fear for deflation or inflation because it's just a stable low growth, and ultimately they want to raise the federal funds rate, and it has fallen from 4.25 to 3.5. Now it's 0.
Yeah.
And they definitely want to get that up there at some point. But right now, as we talked about in the interest rate update, there isn't a ton of fear of inflation.
Yeah, well, since Volcker got in there 20-some years ago, they pretty much had a handle on it.
Well, and we have the rest of the world easing monetary policy as well. I mean, the Europeans, everybody else in the world has been easing monetary policy, which you would think would put inflation into it, but we haven't seen it since
yet.
Right, and so it bodes well for the Fed to keep things consistent, as long as they don't see that, to try to spur economic growth. Because with the low economic growth, of course, if we're averaging 3.6 since 1947 and now we're in the twos, anything they can do to try to get that number up there is probably what they have to do to actually spur on some inflation.
Prime the pump a little bit.
It's just always they just never know. It's like inflation's like a volcano. You
just never really know. When
there's no way to really control it. I mean, what kind of regulator do you put on an eruption? And it always seems like inflation comes like an eruption.
Well, it seems to me like when you get into a war, wars and inflation seem to feed on each other.
Well, it creates a demand for raw materials and supplies.
All that mess in Germany between the two world wars came out of the First World War.
Right, and you always have
the economic mess,
and that's always the argument that you get economic growth out of
war being the health of the state and all that.
Right, yeah. So it's one of those things where, well, we've had that hasn't helped us that much, Jim. We've had more military commitments and actions. Our military spending in the budget's huge, so that hasn't exactly created economic.
Do you think maybe we're overcompensating that because of the nature of the people we have had in charge of the Fed? People like Greenspan, who was a fiscal conservative, obviously, a supply-sider, if you will, and supply-siders have been, I don't want to say accused, but they're known to have kind of a fetish about rolling back inflation and keeping inflation in check. Do you think that's been an issue here?
Well, no, because we've even one of the things Greenspan was criticized for was that he kept interest rates too low for too long.
Okay.
That was a part of what contributed to the housing bubble. Is that contributed to the massive economic growth in Greenspan's time was because interest rates were out there putting money into the system, creating this velocity of cash in the system that resulted in a boom that set up the bust cycle. So definitely, I don't think the supply-siders would put Greenspan on their shoulders and carry him around.
Okay.
There was when he did raise interest rates up to was almost over a point, and it did kind of stall the economy for a little bit.
Right.
Then I don't think anybody was happy with him at that point. But as we head into the break, we will come back and we're going to talk about by the numbers, North Dakota housing first-time homebuyer changes, millennials. Your in-laws are moving in with you. It's just
Right now, 73.
Get the app called Radio Pup for your iPhone and take us everywhere you go. Bismarck and Mandan's own Super Talk 1270.
Saw Chicago in concert when they were here. They're great. Unbelievable musicians.
Love them horns.
All right. So here we go. We got By the Numbers. The interesting stuff brought to us. I get this through Mortgage Market Guide. But a couple of interesting things. Here's some good news about something bad. Just August and September to go, the government is projecting a $525 billion deficit for the fiscal year of 2014. Now, a total that would represent the smallest national deficit since the fiscal year of 2008. So there's something bad getting better. So that's like your fever's going down.
Yeah.
So people changing jobs. Of the 4.83 million hires nationwide during the month of June 2014, 94% were in the private sector. Only 6% in the government sector, according to the Department of Labor, which is good. Private jobs are good. Government jobs are, if you got a job, you don't really care if it's government or private, actually. But job's a job. If you're getting the job, you don't care. Work less, work longer. Carlos Slim of Mexico is the second wealthiest person in the world today, worth $72 billion. Now, did you know him, Carlos Slim? Jim, you have a knowledge of all the obscure and strange. Carlos Slim of Mexico. Did you know the second richest person in the world was in Mexico?
I think I did. I seem to recall reading that somewhere. That is he the guy who runs that big concrete company down there?
Mobile phone.
Oh,
mobile
okay.
phone business.
As I was going to say, there's a big concrete company. It's world famous, and it's based in Mexico.
Slim has
and
proposed,
they handle concrete for the whole world. And supposedly the guy who owns that he's up there with the biggest of them.
Slim proposed that instead of the traditional 5 days a week schedule until age 65, employees should work just 3 days a week.
I like it.
11 hours a day through the age of 70.
I can live with that.
So work less during the week, but longer days.
Yeah.
And then
I like that.
Work older.
Yeah.
But don't work.
Of course, you know what's going to happen. We're going to get to the point where we're working 3 days a week, and we're complaining about it.
Well, what will happen?
We're going to be like George Jetson, who gripes because he has to work 12 hours a week.
Well, what will happen is you'll work 3 11-hour days and be on call for 4 24-hour days. It just never seems to.
I'm not big on the on-call thing.
I know, but with the mobile technology and all this stuff, who's really off anymore? I don't remember.
It's kind of true.
The only way you actually get a vacation without technology or without being interrupted in your vacation by something work-related is if you go somewhere there's no service.
Or just turn off your phone. That's what I do. Every day I go home and take a nap in the afternoon. I turn my phone off.
But on vacation, how are you going to chat with your friends?
Well, I'll take my friends with me on vacation. Or I'll go visit my friends on vacation.
Since I have so few friends, it would be easy for me to do.
Some of my friends, I need a vacation from the friends.
Yeah, there we go. I need a vacation from the friendship.
Yeah.
All right. Work or have to repay more than 2 out of every 5 student loan borrowers. That's 41%. Miss at least one payment within the first 5 years of beginning their loan repayment. Oh, yeah. I see this all the time on credit reports. It seems like right away when payments start, I see quite a few credit reports with young borrowers where they miss a payment within the first 6 months on their student loans. Causes a real problem getting a home loan. 70% of retirees surveyed in 2007 were very or somewhat confident that they would have a comfortable retirement. 67% of retirees feel that way in 2014. So there's something that's good not getting better. That's from the Employment Benefit Research Institute. So I wonder how they'll feel in 2000. Do you think it'll be 65% in 2015? It's the beast of burden of more than 1,000 American workers surveyed that are less than or equal to 35 years of age. 41% of them anticipate that during their own retirement years that they will be required to financially support their parents and or their siblings. Source Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies.
The old sandwich generation. Take care of the kids and grandpa.
That doesn't. I got to say, it doesn't make any sense though, because from what I've seen, most of the wealth will reside in the baby boomer class.
Yeah.
That's the parents of the 35-year-olds, isn't it? Or is it? Maybe not.
Well, who's 35 years old now would have been born when? About 1979. So that's more like a Generation Xer.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Right. So to me, well, there's no way they're going to be supporting their parents. They'll be working 2 and 3 jobs.
Yeah, good luck with that. I'm moving back in with you. Yeah, good luck with that, Grandpa.
Well, we're going to get to that because we got the story about your in-laws moving in.
Oh, yeah.
And who pays their mortgage best on time and what's happening to the size of houses. Not in the budget. 34% of Americans surveyed indicate that they have gone without some form of medical care in the prior 12 months because they could not afford to pay for the product or service. Huh. Thought we fixed that. But we don't talk about that problem on this. This is a Obamacare-free zone.
That's right.
Less than 30 years in length. Until the 1930s, the average length of a home mortgage taken out by an American homebuyer was 5 to 10 years. Penn Institute of Urban Research. So the Penn Institute of Urban Research. So until the 1930s, the average length of a home mortgage was 5 to 10 years. Could you imagine what the payment would be on a 5-year mortgage on a $225,000 house in Bismarck, North Dakota? Yeah, exactly right. There's no way. Of course, that's probably what kept home values lower. One of the things that does help the prices of both homes and college education go up is because longer financing options give people lower payment options to pay them off over a longer period of time.
Okay.
And that does contribute to higher prices. Whether that increases value or not would be an entirely different argument. Better and better. At the end of 2010, 9% of mortgages had at least one payment past due. Another 4.6% of mortgages were in the foreclosure process. At the end of 2012, 7.5% of mortgages were late, and another 3.7% were in foreclosure. At the end of June this year, 6% of mortgages were late. So that's a 3% improvement.
And that's considered good or bad or indifferent? Or?
Well, it's considered improving.
Improving, okay, better than it was.
2.5% of mortgages were in foreclosure. That's from the Mortgage Bankers Association.
At a normal time, how many would be? What's considered the optimum low number?
I think they're shooting for 1%.
Okay.
And probably less than 5% delinquency.
Like they say, 4% employment is full employment,
Yeah.
so 1% would be...
What you want is 3% delinquency, so 3% with people who are behind.
Okay.
And less than 1% of where you're actually taking the house back. And that's ideal. That's not the target, but that's ideal.
Yeah.
Swinging. Now, here's just something about Babe Ruth. Now, here's something to think about. Babe Ruth never struck out 100 times or more in a single season. During the 2013 season, 74 major leaguers struck out at least 100 times, including one ball player, Chris Carter of the Astros, that struck out 212 times.
Now, are we? I assume we're accounting for the number of at-bats and all that.
I don't think we are.
Oh, really?
Because it just says number of strikeouts.
Yeah.
It doesn't say per at-bat. And I don't remember how much did the season.
I mean, the Babe struck out a lot. I mean, because he would swing a lot. You know, he'd swing for those big dingers, you know. And, you know, nobody's perfect, not even the Babe. He struck out a lot. I mean, there's a very famous film of the Babe striking out on the pitch, and he swung it so hard he actually spun around 3 or 4 times like a ballerina, big, fat, giant ballerina hopping around on one foot.
That's hilarious. Well, I mean, I don't think it's accounting for the number of at-bats.
Yeah.
That would be a percentage.
I was like a Roger Maris thing where they take into account the number of times he actually got to hit the ball.
Right, and then, because I think then the number would... Because I can't believe that the season's so much longer now.
It is.
I mean, it's
too long.
It's not just a summer sport anymore.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I mean, it goes on, and they play a lot every day.
Yeah,
and a couple times a day. double, triple headers.
Sure,
with the
double,
lights.
triple, yeah.
With the lights, man, you can go on forever.
Yeah.
You could play forever.
Well, with relief pitchers, I mean, remember the old days when pitchers were expected to play a whole game, and if they didn't, they were real wusses. They were saying, "Oh, you went on to play the whole game for it. Get in there."
Don't complain about that shoulder.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when we come back, who's doing the best job of paying their mortgage? Are your in-laws moving in with you? What's happening to the size of houses? North Dakota housing changes, and how old's too old to buy a house? All in the next 2 segments here on Mortgage Talk 101 after the break.
Right now, 73.
Get the traffic and weather information you need anytime on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
And welcome back to Mortgage Talk 101. We do have, I think we made the announcement on the show, but it came up again, and want to make sure that everybody knows about this change in the North Dakota Housing Program. Remember, the North Dakota Housing Program, it in a large part serves first-time homebuyers, but
Right.
It's not the only people it serves. It serves if you're a family where you are have at least 50% custody of your children. Even if it's not your first home, you can still use these programs. And a great new change made to the program is the down payment assistance program. They have the start funds. And the start funds in the past, if you were buying a 2-unit property, so if you were buying a duplex where you could rent out either like the basement or the other side, you weren't able to use the down payment assistance because there was this investment aspect to the property. Even though you were going to live in one part of the property,
Right.
they wouldn't allow you to use the down payment assistance program. Well, now, even if it's a duplex, if it's a 2-unit, you can use the down payment assistance program, which means that your minimum requirement to get into a loan through their program is $500. So you could actually, if you're someone who's buying a home, now good luck finding a duplex in Bismarck,
Yeah.
Mandan. I think there's only like 5 or 6 on the market. A lot of them you're gonna, they're some of them need some work. I mean, you're buying some stuff that needs some tender love and care. But,
Yeah.
But the great news is if you are someone that fits and that works and you find a property that fits your needs, you now have 3% of the purchase price that can be used as down payment assistance or for closing costs that helps you afford getting into that first home that has a rental income to help subsidize it and make it more affordable for you. Now, why is that so important? Well, North Dakota, we've been talking about affordable housing options.
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah.
How do you make owning a home affordable? And this is really our state government stepping up in a great way to practically help solve a problem. If there's a rental property available that has a side that can be rented or a basement that can be rented, this gives someone who needs that extra secondary income from the property itself to help afford living in and owning their own home. Brilliant move, great change. So if you're somebody who thinks you can use the North Dakota Housing Program and you can use the START funds, by the way, I think this also applies to the ROOTS program. Now, what's the ROOTS program? The ROOTS program is that program that was originally designed for North Dakotans moving back to North Dakota.
Right.
Well, now that program, I believe, is expanded, and it's not just for that. It's for anybody moving into the state, and I think they're changing income limits and everything on that program. And so you may, if it qualifies to use the START funds, you can use the START funds in that one too, and maybe buy an investment property. Now, one caution. Word to the wise. If you think what you're going to do is begin your rental empire this way, you can. However, something you should know. Once you move out of that property, North Dakota Housing has a strict policy about allowing you to keep their financing and rent it out.
Yeah.
They either require usually that you sell it because they want to put affordable housing back into the market
Right.
for somebody else.
Sure.
Or they
Makes
require
sense.
you refinance it.
Okay.
Now, the problem with that is that doesn't sound hard, but let's say you bought that nice little duplex and you got a 3.5% rate on it or 4.5% rate at whatever time you did it. And now you are moving out of it to buy another house
Yeah.
or another duplex that you're going to make your primary residence. And
Because plans
whatever.
change. I mean,
Yep.
provision, things happen.
Well, if rates are at 6%, North Dakota Housing is not going to care. They're going to say, hey, we don't care that rates went up if you're not living in that house.
Yeah.
You still have another choice. If it doesn't make sense to refinance it because rates went up, then you can always sell that house and put it back into the market for the next affordable
Gotcha.
housing
Okay.
person. And so just something to be careful about that. Don't look at this. This is really an option to help you take a property that you otherwise couldn't afford to buy. Take someone who otherwise couldn't afford to buy a home, buy a property that has rental income in it to help subsidize their ability to own a home. And that down payment assistance now can come into play and help that person have a much better monthly cash flow
Okay.
on owning a home. It's not how you begin your rental empire.
Just be ready to jump through a few hoops.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fair enough. I mean, it's their ball game.
I mean, yeah, what would you ask? I mean, that's one of the things that we do deal with is that people go, oh, it's so much work to get a mortgage. You have to give so much information. If you were going to give somebody $200,000
Yeah. That's a lot of money, even now.
at 4.5%.
Okay.
Let's say you had $200,000.
Yeah.
If you had $200,000,
I wouldn't be sitting here. Nothing personal.
yeah, and you were going to lend it to somebody, would you lend it to them for 30 years at a fixed rate of 4.5%, or what today's rates were like 4.1 with the half point discount or whatever? But would you give them anything in the fours for 30 years with your money?
At a fixed rate, regardless of what
No
happens.
matter what happens.
Hell or high water.
They have that $200,000 for the next 30 years at 4%.
Yeah.
Would you give someone the money?
Well, I might, but I'm not very smart.
Well, if you did, let's say you did, Jim.
Okay. Hypothetically.
What information would you want from that person before you gave them the $200,000?
First of all, I'd want to make sure that they're going to be around to pay for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd probably
That you're not going to get frustrated year down the road and move back to wherever.
You'd probably want to talk to their past employers. Were they
Yeah.
a good employee? Will they keep a job? Do they keep a job?
See if they have a criminal record.
they-
The obvious stuff. Sure.
All the stuff. Do they pay everybody else that they owe money to?
I'd probably want to know their education. That would matter.
Yeah.
You know,
You'd want
if they
a lot.
dropped out of high school or something, that would have a bearing on it.
Most people would probably want more information than what we ask for at the bank.
Yeah.
If they were giving somebody $200,000 for 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's, we often sometimes kid that, get the lab kit out, we're about to draw blood. Yeah. But it would probably be that way. Well, and this brings us to, we'll go ahead and move one of our questions forward. How old is too old to qualify for a loan?
My wife and I had this very conversation recently because I'm 58 now. And my wife
you don't look at.
Well, thank you.
You don't look a day over 58.
I don't smoke cigarettes. I really think that has something to do with it. And I get plenty of sleep every night. I sleep 8 hours plus every night. I don't get much done, but I look great, But
Not on the Edison plan.
So my wife and I are, we're kind of getting up there a little bit, and we've discussed that we're renting now, and we deal with all the usual frustrations that you deal with when you're renting. We just re-upped our lease a couple of days ago, and it was cool. But, they always like to put these silly little things in there, like no candles. We're not allowed to have candles. They changed a policy regarding pets. We're no longer allowed to let the cats out, for a little walk in the afternoon unless they're on the leash. Silly stuff like that. And at some point you say, well, if I had my own place, and I could do what I want with all this stuff.
My gosh, I could have 20 cats.
But then we're thinking, look, I'll be 60 years old in about a year and 3 months. And, I'm going to be walking in and asking for a 30-year mortgage at the age of 60. They might conceivably have a problem with that.
Well, the good news is, for anybody of any age, 105, doesn't matter. You can apply for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage.
Oh, okay.
You absolutely can. There are laws, the equal housing. Like whenever we do the radio ads here, and you hear the bank radio ads on there that say, equal housing lender.
Equal
member
housing
F-
lender,
yeah,
member
member
FDIC,
FDIC,
like
yeah.
Ohio, West of the Rockies.
Yep. All that verbiage is about the fact that it doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 105. Literally, you could co-sign.
Well, the oldest man in the world is 111 over in Japan.
Yeah, he could if he had a social security number and applied for an FHA loan, I'd have to give it to him as long as his credit was good enough. And there's no restriction on what type of loan you can apply for or anything like that. The question becomes, is it good for you?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people automatically say, well, there's no way you want to take out a 30-year mortgage on a house if you're 58 years old or you're 63 years old.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, you're never going to pay. You're going to be 90-some years old and you're going to pay that back.
Well, there's two ways of looking at it, I think. There's your perspective. Do I want to be paying for this for literally the rest of my life? And their perspective, they got to be thinking, well, and there's a distinct possibility this guy may not be around to pay off this final payment.
Well, the bank can't think that way at all. The bank can't think that way at all. They cannot use your age in a calculation of risk of whether or not they believe you can pay it off or not. And the truth is, nobody plans to pay off a 30-year mortgage, quite honestly.
Okay.
A 30-year mortgage is really a payment management plan.
Yeah.
And where you do build equity over time because the balance does go down. But almost nobody goes into a house with the idea that they're going to live there for 30 years. Most people go, I can use this lower payment to manage it, and then I can pay it off early if I'm going to stay there.
Well, I've known people who bought houses here and moved away in 2 years.
Yeah.
Happens.
I mean, most people don't come into the idea if they're going to pay it off. So, but what you can do, so the question for someone who's 60 years old is it a good idea for you to have the long-term debt?
Yeah.
And you know what? Right now, a 3-bedroom in Bismarck might cost you $1,500. A $225,000 house, you might be able to have a payment of $1,200. It might be a good idea to pay that 30-year mortgage versus the rent.
Plus, there's all the tax benefits from it.
Yeah.
Which is not the reason to buy a house, but it is a good thing.
No, exactly. And so there may be some benefits to buying a house even if you're older.
Cool.
Or co-signing on it to help someone younger buy one. So, we are at the break. When we come back, we're going to talk about who's doing the best job of paying their mortgages. Your in-laws are moving in with you. Just get ready.
Doesn't make me smile.
And what's happened to the size of houses. Last segment of Mortgage Talk 101 after this break.
Right now, 73.
You're never more than a few minutes from a weather update here on Super Talk 1270.
And welcome back to Mortgage Talk 101. Little Chicago, bringing us into the final
Feeling
segment.
stronger every day.
Every segment, feeling stronger.
Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. And doggone it, people like me.
They do. They do like you, Jim. All right, well, who's doing the best job of paying their mortgages?
I would think older people. Because they're more financially responsible for the most part.
Daily real estate news. Mortgage borrowers under the age of 30 have the lowest mortgage delinquency rate of any other age group, according to the newly released TransUnion mortgage report.
Talk about being counterintuitive.
If everybody knows who TransUnion is, you got your main three.
I am very familiar with TransUnion.
Your main three credit reporting agencies. TransUnion's one of the big hogs. However, the age group also makes up the smallest share of all mortgage accounts at 4.16%.
Oh, again, you got to factor in the number of samples.
Overall, the mortgage delinquency rate, the percentage of borrowers 60 days or more delinquent on their mortgage, fell for the 10th consecutive quarter, and this is what we were talking about earlier by the numbers. The 50 to 59 age group has the largest share of mortgage accounts at 27.09%. So under 30, 2.34% of mortgages. 30 to 39, 3.9. 40 to 49, 4.43. Oh, these are the delinquency rates. I'm sorry. Let me go back to the beginning. The delinquency rates for these age groups.
Yeah.
Under the age of 30 is 2.34%. 30 to 39, 3.9. 40 to 49, 4.4. 50 to 59, 3.46. And 60 plus, 2.58. It kind of makes sense. You look at, we talk about the economy on this show quite frequently, and we talk about jobs and who lost the jobs. And, that age group between 40 and 59, they lost the jobs.
Yeah.
And who had to try to go out and find new jobs and who wound up making less money at the new job.
Yeah.
40 to 49-year-olds.
Yeah, that's a big thing about the jobs because the quantity of jobs are out there, but not necessarily the quality of the jobs.
Right. And so It makes sense. The delinquency, foreclosure rates, all that stuff I would think since 2008, we've probably seen that age group between 40 and 59 go backwards in terms of their positive credit histories.
Let me throw something at you totally from left field, if I may. Now, driving by one of the local, I'll say it was one of the Dairy Queens. One of the Dairy Queens in town is closed, according to the sign, because of a lack of workforce. Now, what do you make of that? I mean, there's apparently there are businesses that can't go on because they can't afford, apparently, to hire the people they need. Yet there are people who are under. It's a mess.
I think in that case, I think that Dairy Queen is just a miscalculation. I think they hired college students that were going back earlier than they thought. And what happened?
I don't know.
And what happened is they miscalculated that's going to be a problem. Speaking of, both you and I are big in right now losing weight. You've lost some weight.
Yeah, I've lost some weight, about 15 pounds.
I've lost a small human being.
Yeah.
Along with that, but
and he's a very nice person too.
Yeah, it's too bad. He's
running up and down the hall right now.
In fact, I saw all the weight I lost on a milk carton the other day.
Oh, okay. Good place to see it.
But we don't want him back. Please don't find him.
Yeah. It's a good problem.
Please don't find him. But it helped having that Dairy Queen close early, actually, for me, because that's right near my house. It's right in my neighborhood. But I think that's going to be a continuing problem, because I believe next year Bismarck schools. Oh, we're way off track here, folks.
I know.
But Bismarck schools are opening later next year, which would extend the sales season for that Dairy Queen. Maybe extend the Elks pool season, which is a good supplier business for that Dairy Queen. But if they're depending on college students, the college students are probably still going to need to go back to school this time of year.
In mid-August, right about now, they're going back and getting ready.
Yeah, so they're going to have to come up with a different plan if they want to keep that Dairy Queen open for the whole season. I don't know what that's going to.
In fact, some of the schools have already started. Some of the colleges,
sure.
University of Mary, the grad students are all back already.
Yeah. Well, and athletes are already back. Football players, cheerleaders, and
they go back midsummer, football.
Yeah. So I don't know how they're going to manage for that next year, because there's a customer base still out there, and there's going to be a customer service base in Bismarck for that Dairy Queen going well into September, because it's not going to be till after Labor Day that kids are going to go back to school next year.
Yeah, at some point we ought to get into this in more
I don't know.
detail.
You know what?
But yeah,
the good news is we know where to get our part-time job next summer.
Yeah,
Jim. Because we will be here through Labor Day weekend.
Yes,
we would be highly coveted employees for that Dairy Queen, and maybe we have some leverage.
Yeah, I'm real good at drawing ice cream.
Oh, could you imagine?
I think I would be anyway.
And you know what? And I'll be there to take care of the mistakes.
Yeah,
it works out. Okay, so let's see. The major markets that show the largest yearly drops in mortgage. So mortgage delinquency is getting better.
Yeah,
we were talking about who pays their mortgages best. It's incredibly, it's surprising that the under 30-year age group has the best performance right now, even better than the over 62 group. But the areas where mortgage delinquency is dropping the fastest: San Francisco dropped 29.3%, Phoenix 28.7%, Miami 26.7%, Los Angeles 24%, and Chicago 20.6%. And there was a story today on the news on TV that I saw.
Now the mortgage rates are dropping. Yeah,
that house values were going up in South Florida at record level. Well, of course, the reason why is because in Miami, foreclosures and delinquencies are going down.
Okay,
which means that there's less properties on the market, which means values can finally start coming up in
Does
some
this
of these
mean
markets.
things are going to start getting better again in the Sun Belt and in California?
You'd hope, as long as there's jobs there to pay for
Yeah.
the expansion of the market as things come up, because eventually things will plateau again
Yeah.
if there's not new supply. Okay, so what was the? Oh, your in-laws, they want to live with you.
Yeah.
Let's see what families extend aging parents a sweet deal. So here, you don't see this much anymore, but there every once in a while you run into a house with what we used to call a mother-in-law apartment,
Mother-in-law.
or a mother-in-law suite, and so here more homeowners, again the Daily Real Estate News, more homeowners are remodeling their dwellings to create in-law suites for aging parents. Well, this goes back to maybe those 35-year-olds are right. Maybe they are
Yeah.
going to wind up taking care of their folks.
Well, a lot of younger generations are taking over their parents' house, and the parents kind of become the guests there.
Oh,
the
man.
whole role
You are
reversal
talking about
thing.
insulting. So you take over your folks' house.
Yeah.
Remodel it to kick them to a side room. Get them out of the way.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. All right. So AARP Senior Policy Advisor Rodney Harrell says demand for in-law suites is on the rise as baby boomers age, with the cost of caregiving facilities and services roaring. So I guess this is so that mom can stay a little closer, maybe avoid the big cost of it's the versus a transitional facility that's costing tens of thousands of dollars a month.
Yeah, and plus it's kind of a drag to have to put your parents in one of those things, unless you're a total jerk and you just don't want them around.
Well, I thought they were like spas now. You got the massage was scheduled at 8:30 after breakfast, and
Well, yeah, I mean, like the place over on Century, they got a real nice facility.
yeah, I know.
But still, I feel I'd be very reluctant to put my father in one of those places, unless he really wanted to go. He might, I don't know.
In some jurisdiction, in-law suites can have a bedroom, sitting area, bathroom, and a couple of appliances. But adding a stove or full kitchen would require special permits. So I guess before you build one, check into it. Make sure that we allow it here in Bismarck, Mandan. Maybe somebody we should get on that. Maybe we should get somebody from zoning on, from the zoning committee on the show
Yeah.
sometime.
Oh, we can call Kate and Dawn over the downtowners. I'm sure they would know the people to contact. Or we would just call ourselves, called downtown.
Or we could make it up. Let's
Yeah,
just make it
just-
up. Throw it out on the air.
Pull
Make
it right out of my ear here. Oh, there it is.
So what's happening to the size of homes? And that's probably, as we close down the show, what's happening to the size of homes? Following 2 years of increasing home size, the median size of new homes appears to be leveling off as entry-level buyers return to the market drawn to more modest homes. I remember this too, 2006. Even the first-time home buyers had an expectation of 3 bedrooms and 3-stall garages.
Yeah.
It was you started seeing the expectation growing that anything less than 3 bedrooms and a 3-stall or 4-stall garage was going to be too little to buy.
Well, the house I grew up in was a little tiny house. The first house I remember.
I grew up in a 2-bedroom.
Yeah,
with
me
3
too.
kids.
2 bed, 1 bath.
Yeah.
And that was with 2 parents and me
Unfinished
and my
basement?
brother. Yeah, and a dog.
And I think my parents, I think I don't even know if there were 2 bedrooms in that house. And I think they had 6 kids. And I guess I don't know how far. I'm trying to think of how far apart they are, but I mean, and some of these the Catholic families and folks like that, 8, 9, 10 kids. I mean, there's no way you had 10 bedrooms.
No.
I mean, maybe in the summer you might have been able to put up a little tent city or something.
Well,
like
my
that.
brother and I shared a bedroom for years.
Yeah, I don't know. So I mean,
It's no big deal.
but the median size of new homes began to increase in 2012 as the move up and luxury buyers began to drive to purchase larger homes. Also, buyers were showing preferences for more bedrooms, at least 3. And we were just talking about that. Larger garages, basements, wide open living spaces like great rooms, according to a 2012 survey of the new home buyers conducted by the National Association of Home Builders. So home sizes were going up, but hey, people are starting to kind of become a little more modest. Now, we've seen that. The bigger spaces are valuable, and of course, with the bigger spaces, you lose rooms. You don't have as many rooms if you got big spaces for like your great rooms.
Well, I do need room for storage. I mean, I got a lot of junk. I got to put it somewhere.
Well, there we are. We'll end the show with Jim's got a lot of junk.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Next week, Dave should be back on the air with us
All
here
right.
on Mortgage Talk 101. And have a great week. Or Mortgage Talk 101, where it's always partly sunny.
Cool.